Very special episode of The Pod and the Pendulum. This is your host, Mike Snoonian, on his own tonight with an interview with the director of Jason Goes to Hell, The Final Friday, director Adam Marcus. Adam, how are we tonight?
I'm awesome, Mike. How are you doing, brother?
I'm doing great, man. And I'm super glad you got to join me tonight. I had a really important question for you here that I wanted to start with. It's something that I've been wondering for a long time.
Sure.
So what is your opinion on whether or not a hot dog is or isn't a sandwich?
Let's see. I don't know if I would call it a sandwich.
Okay, we can continue then.
Yeah. Being a New Yorker, I don't think any New Yorkers ever called it a sandwich.
Excellent. All right, we can continue then.
Yeah.
So, honestly, my first question is this. I kind of wanted to know, we know the background of how you got The Final Friday, basically being a childhood friend of Noel Cunningham, starting your own theater company in high school, and directing a ton of things, and then basically telling Sean Cunningham, give me this movie or else. But what sort of, what I want to know is, what sort of pressure did you put on yourself, once you got the gig? Because looking at the history, it's not just a Friday the 13th movie. It's the first one for New Line. It's been 5 years in between films, and the past 3 didn't perform commercially like the others had. That has to be a lot of pressure for someone at 23 years old. What was that like for you?
It's funny. I've been asked this recently several times, and I get why people ask it, because the perception must be that, oh my God, I'm so young, I'm being handed the reins to the biggest horror franchise in history as of that point. What have I brought upon myself? Here's the thing. I didn't think any of that stuff. I was far too excited about what I was working on. I was far too in love with getting to play in this sandbox. And look, my whole family's in the industry, or at least most of my family's in the industry. And so I've been around it my whole life. And the fact that, Noel and I were best friends when we were kids, from the time we were about, 6 or 7 on, I was always around Sean and the Cunninghams. But by the way, Sean, absolutely remarkable producer. But his wife, Susan, is an editor, or was an editor. God rest her soul. We lost her earlier this year. And one of the nicest women I've ever known, and was like a mom to me. These were incredibly talented, driven people. So I was never allowed to act as anything but professional. I had to be a professional. So by the time I was 11, that's the way I was behaving. So when I got the gig to do Jason, remember, I wasn't, by the way, everybody always likes to think that I was 23. I was 21 when I got the gig. Okay. So people always want to think it's 23. 23 is when I shot the film. I got the gig to write the movie when I was 21, because I had brought, and you guys had delved into this a little bit on your show, which I got to hear, and you guys are awesome. It's why I responded immediately. You guys are great. I want to talk to you. Absolutely. The thing that happened was, I had graduated film school. I graduated NYU. I had won Best Picture with a movie there that was a comedy, a romantic comedy. A very R-rated romantic comedy. Sean had seen it and loved it, asked me to come to LA. I was supposed to be his bitch for a year, and then he would give me a shot. I brought a script with me that my closest friend in college, Dean Laurie, had written, called Johnny Zombie. And you guys talked about it ended up becoming my boyfriend's back for Disney. And here's the thing. We set it up with Disney. I was the driving force behind that movie. And then I saw what Disney was going to do to it. They were going to turn it into a Disney movie. And it was originally an R-rated zombie comedy with musical numbers in it. And they turned it into this soft PG-13. I don't know how you would categorize it. And there's great things about that movie. And I love Bob Balaban and I love the cast. So, but I ended up being an associate producer on that movie. That ended up being my first gig. Well, I brought Sean a lot of money and I turned to him and I said, great, I just made you a killing. I'm not going to be involved with this movie. One, I think, Disney was like, wait a minute, 21-year-old kid directing our movie? What are you, insane? And second, I didn't want to do it. Like, the movie was not going to be the movie that I loved. And again, the advice I give any young filmmaker is like, don't make a movie you don't love. You have to love the movie. So I said, Sean, I've made you a ton of money. I want a movie. Give me a movie. You owe me one. And at that point, Sean said, Adam, you are the world's biggest nudge, which at that point I didn't know was really a compliment, but one of the best compliments I'd ever gotten. And then he said, look, New Line's buying Friday the 13th from Paramount. They're going to buy Jason Voorhees. If you can get the fucking mask out of the movie, I'll let you write and direct it.
What was it about the hockey? Because one thing we talk about it more in the episodes we're doing now is like Sean Cunningham seems to really either hate or not get the character of Jason, and we can't quite wrap our heads around that. What is it about the character and the mask that seems to really set Sean on edge, do you think?
Okay. So, Sean ostensibly had made a ripoff of Bay of Blood. He was playing on themes that the Italians had been doing for a decade at that point, but he came up with this great twist that it's this middle-aged woman who's murdering these kids, and he's got this rock-solid foundation of why, which is her child, this poor, handicapable kid with a hydrocephalic head is allowed to drown because the counselors who should be watching him are off in the woods having sex. That's great. Like, that's just a great story, right? Really simple. He's doing 10 Little Indians with a ton of gore thanks to Tom Savini. Awesome. Well, then I don't know if you remember, but there are raindrops at the last shot of the film when she says the boy, then he's still out there. There are raindrops on the surface of the pond
these small ripples, right? Correct. Yep.
Right, but they're raindrops. Well, the executives of Paramount see them as air bubbles coming from under the surface of the pond. That's where they came up with this whole freaking idea. That's where this was born. So, in what is a beautiful piece of photography at the end of that movie is sort of the secret to how this gets born. Okay. Now here's the thing. I'm 11 years old when that movie, I'm 11 years old when that movie gets released. Right. And for me, it's the coolest shit I've ever seen. And you also have to remember, I had seen the movie 4 times before it went to theaters because I watched it at Noel's house. By the way, just so that you know that you might not know this, Noel Cunningham's birthday is June 13th. Okay. So
falls on a Friday.
Oh yeah, dude, we had a party at his house on June 13th, 1980, the day the movie happens. We had a party and showed the movie to all of our 11 and 12-year-old friends. Okay. Can you imagine parents' reactions when they find out what their kids were watching over at the Cunningham joint?
I can, because I allow my 9-year-old daughter. I should edit. Awesome. You know what? I'm not going to edit this part out. My wife today, we're Skyping because she's in England, and she goes, so Ada asked me something. I'm like, yep. She goes, Mom, what does it mean to suck a cock? And she goes, what? She goes, well, Daddy and I were watching a scary movie, and someone said, suck my cock. And Dad said, we'll talk about that at a different time when I'm older, but I really want to know. So she's like, can you kind of be a little careful with what you want? Like, her current favorite movie is Elm Street 3, and I won't let Yeah, and I won't let her watch Blair Witch Project yet because I think it's too scary for her.
It's too scary. Yeah, you're 100% right.
And she loves. She thought Friday the 13th 2 was boring. She's like, it's just kids getting drunk and having sex. And I'm like, you have figured out every slasher movie at age 9.
There's the formula.
So I can. Yes, I can totally envision what other parents are thinking when that's happening.
Yep. So, look, for me, here's the thing that happened with Sean regarding The Mask and regarding Jason as vis-a-vis, the movie he made and then what it became. I almost feel like Jason became Frankenstein's monster for Sean. He had created this thing, and then it got a life of its own that had nothing to do with Sean. It really didn't. And it really went to his protege, Steve Miner, who had been Sean's protege since they did Last House on the Left. Steve Miner was a PA on that movie. So Steve had grown up and become an assistant editor for Susan Cunningham. He was there the whole time I was around, when Wes was there, all of that. I mean, you got to remember, I was immersed in, horror, hardcore, crazy, lunatic people who were all incredibly sweet and incredibly generous to this little kid who just wanted to know everything. And so when Sean, when the sackhead version of Jason in part 2, which, by the way, I love part 2, and I love part 2 mostly because of the sort of backwoods nature of the movie. I think it's dirty and fun and creepy, and I just think it's a cool movie, and I think Amy Steele is extraordinary.
I'll agree in all counts.
Yeah, it's just a cool movie. Part 3, which is not as cool a movie, but it gets the mask. It gets that hockey mask. And here's the thing, man. When something hits, it hits. It just made sense. And it's frightening. And there's something about the blankness of it vis-a-vis sort of, Halloween and Michael Myers. There's a blankness to it that is scary, because what the hell's behind the mask? By the way, it's why I never unmasked Jason in my movie, because I was like, I always think when they take the mask off, I go, whatever. It's never scary. It's just not scary. What the mask is scary. Wondering what's under the mask is scary. And it's something that Wes used to say and that Sean used to say all the time, that once you know the face of fear, it's not scary anymore. And I agree. I agree with them. I think they're spot on. So here's the problem. Sean, when I first started work for him, he had been asking us what we wanted from our careers. Myself, Dean, Laurie, Noel, all of us, we all lived together at that time. He was always asking us, what do you guys want to do? What do you want, what do you see your future as? And of course we had, waxed rhapsodic about, what we would do. And at one point I turned to Sean, I said, but what do you want to do? You got a lot of movies left in you. What do you want to do? And he turned to me in all earnest and said, I want to win an Academy Award. Mm-hmm. And I looked at him, and I'm telling you, as a 21-year-old snot-nosed jerk, I thought, yeah, right. Well, by the way, that's why he hates the mask. Okay. That mask, Sean is the man in the plastic mask. He can't get out from under it. That mask is his whole career. And no matter how many times he's tried to break through with other stuff, he hasn't been able to. And he was developing really cool dramas and thrillers and interesting stuff at the company when I was working for him. And he couldn't get any of it financed. All he could get financed was Friday the 13th. That's it.
So not even other genre films, just give us more Friday films.
Look, he produced the House movies, which, started off incredibly well and did great money. Mm-hmm. And then that died. He, directed Spring Break, which is, pretty much a late night Skinamax movie, just, better done. He really did try to remake himself many times over. And nobody cared. Nobody noticed. Nobody wanted it. They wanted more Jason. And here's the thing. His Jason is Ari Lehman at the bottom of a lake. So here's this guy who gets this hockey mask really welded onto his own noggin, and he's the Jason guy. Well, I got to tell you, man, look, I get it. When people are set certain limitations, it's why the film I followed, Jason Goes to Hell with, was a romantic comedy. Mm-hmm. It was I'm not going to be a guy who has a part number after every movie I make. No matter how much I love the genre, I don't want to be pigeonholed by it. I want to be able to make movies. And look at what Wes had to go through in order to get Music of the Heart made. He had to make Scream 3. He had to. He had no choice. You make a Scream 3, we'll finance Music of the Heart. That's how it happened.
Right.
So these, filmmakers want to tell stories. We're storytellers, and we don't always want to tell the same story. We want to tell different stuff. And look, Stephen King, in order to do different things, had to write under an assumed name.
Right.
Because people wouldn't accept it from him.
So how do you balance it then when you have this? Obviously, any of us that have ever done anything creatively, I think, would like to know that we have a legacy that we've left behind.
Absolutely.
And at one day, Sean Cunningham's legacy is going to be he gave birth to Jason.
Yep.
And as far as a legacy goes, that doesn't suck.
It does not. It does not. I think it's a terrific legacy. I don't think he thinks it's a terrific legacy.
So how do you balance that then with you have financial obligations and you want to make money versus perhaps maybe just walking away from it all and saying I don't want to be known for this. I think I just want to wipe my hand. Why not wipe your hands of it?
Here's the thing. I think he's known for. I think he's damned if he does, damned if he doesn't. I think he's linked with Jason forever. By the way, in some way, so am I. Mm-hmm. I mean, we're talking 26 years on. I've made a lot of movies, and I am still Adam. Jason Goes to Hell, Marcus. And you know what? Okay, cool. Mm-hmm. That's on me to change my legacy and to do something so interesting that it changes that middle name. Mm-hmm. For Sean, look, going through the lawsuit that he's going through now with Victor and all that, and I definitely have opinions about that I won't get into. But Sean really, 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 really likes money. Mm-hmm. Really likes money.
Okay. Because I will be upfront, we haven't posted this episode yet, but we go pretty hard after Sean and Victor for not being able to come to some sort of agreement that is holding more movies or more material up.
Let's put it this way. You guys actually covered some of this in your podcast about Jason Goes to Hell. Mm-hmm. Okay. And I loved when you guys came to this defense. Sean Cunningham it's on YouTube. You can find it at a convention. Called me quote unquote a fucking liar about the fact that he told me to take the mask out of the movie. So I have been at festivals all over the world in the last 2 years because of my movie Secret Santa, which is which has been lovely. And at those festivals, a lot of times people give me this question if I do a Q&A, and I always say, Turn on your cameras. Everybody's got a camera on their phone. Turn them on now. Anyone who wants to post this to YouTube, go for it. But here's my defense of that actual thing. My defense is this. So either Sean Cunningham, who at that point was in his 50s, in fact, he was just 50. Sean Cunningham either is this incredibly weak-willed, tiny little man who let a 21-year-old film school graduate tell him what he was going to do with his movie, or, which by the way makes him a eunuch, or, and it also makes me the strongest 21-year-old that ever existed, or Sean Cunningham told me what to do, and I, the 21-year-old film student, went, of course, got it, no problem. I'll whip that up tonight, and I did. Which makes him a liar. So either way, I'm good. Either way, I'm either the most powerful young person to ever make a movie, or I'm telling the truth. I'll take either one of those. For Sean, either he's a liar or he is nutless. Mm-hmm. So it's his choice. Whichever one he wants to go with, I'll go with it.
Yeah, I think we all came down on the side that it didn't seem very likely that Sean was telling the truth about that. That seemed to be a little bit of a revisionist history. So I do want to talk about your.
And one other thing, by the way, when it comes to Victor, okay, I've been an employee of Sean's. Mm-hmm. I've seen what Sean does to young writers. I've watched him hand them the contracts that he tried to hand Victor, that he did hand Victor. Mm-hmm. I know exactly what Sean did because I've witnessed him do it. And I'm telling you, someone's right and someone's wrong here. And Victor ain't wrong.
Okay.
So it's easy to go after him because he's a writer and people just think of him as, he only wrote the first movie. What does he matter? Yeah. Yeah, he sure did. And Sean lives like a king, and Victor got a few pennies.
I think we're on the same page with that. I think good. I think you and I are on the same page with that. Basin. I think you'll hear it when we talk. In particular, at the end of Freddy versus Jason Part 1.
I love that that's got 2 parts. That's awesome.
We oh my goodness. It was
that's awesome.
It was like 1 pee break, 4 hours. And
good for you guys. That's awesome.
Partly because I knew I'm leaving this week. I'm like, if I could stretch this to 2 episodes, I won't miss a week of so. Don't tell Jerry that. But no, it's great. It's really fun. So I would talk about your movie though, and one of the things that I think I appreciate now more than when I saw this at 18 is your choice to age the characters up for the movie. Mm-hmm. This is the first film where we're not following teenagers or college students, but these are parents. Small business owners, television hosts. What was it that made, aside from just like, let's shake things up, what made you want to go that route?
What made me want to go that route is that the movie Flatliners had just come out only a couple of years before or a year before I was writing the movie. And I was fascinated with the fact that here were medical students and clearly, people in their 20s or even late 20s or early 30s that were being followed by teenagers, that people were loving that movie. And it made me feel relieved because for me, look, I was a kid who grew up with the Friday the 13th movies. I grew up a fan and I went, okay, aren't the majority of our fans people who started when I started with these movies? Well, I'm in my early 20s. I'm out of college. I'm not a kid anymore. I'm still dumb as a post. But shouldn't we make a movie that reflects the larger audience that's going to come see this movie? And honestly, haven't we had enough dumb teenagers in the woods smoking dope and getting slaughtered? Like, haven't we done that already?
I would say so. I would say after 8 movies we have.
And by the way, I know Jerry only wants teenagers, only wants them getting high and having sex, and he only wants a hockey mask killing them. I totally get it. But I'm telling you, what I would tell Jerry, what I've told everybody who comes at me with that. I go, great, look, then my movie might not be for you, and I totally understand that and I respect it. There are 5 other hockey mask Jason movies for you to watch, and one that's a fake Jason, but he's still in a hockey mask. By the way, when anybody comes at me with that, I'm like, well, part 5, Jason doesn't kill anyone, because he's not in the movie. He's just not there.
What's their reaction to that?
Usually it's, well, that's my second least favorite too. Okay, cool. But again, look, I think that I wanted to make a movie where the people had something more to talk about than getting laid. And also, here's the other thing. Everybody in these movies is having sex. God bless them, as they should. But I thought it was interesting to show the consequence of the teenage sex. So it's why Jessica and Steven have this kid, because they're in their early 20s and they've made a baby. And now there's that consequence to deal with. So I really did want it to be a more complicated, interesting story about people that had more complicated, interesting lives. And that led us to early 20s. Look, the other thing is, I really wanted the lead of the movie to be Tommy Jarvis. Mm-hmm. And I wrote it that way. And then they went, no, you can't have Tommy Jarvis because we didn't buy Tommy Jarvis. Like, New Line didn't own that character. So I couldn't do it. So I wanted it to be the continuation of Tommy Jarvis's story where he thinks this is over. And now he's left the problem of Jason behind and gotten this woman pregnant. And now that pregnancy is going to bring Jason back.
And okay, because I think was there any point where New Line approached Paramount and said, "What's your price?" and it was just too high, or was New Line saying, "Nope, this is what you have to work with"?
Well, here's the thing, and it's funny because you guys got this wrong on the podcast.
Ooh, great!
The movie cost $2.5 million.
Mm-hmm.
Someone last night said that we made $8 million in the first week, and our budget was half that. No, It was not. We had $2.5 million. So we were making this movie for less money than almost all the Paramount movies had been made, and a decade after the Paramount movies started. Mm-hmm. So we had very little money. And by the way, to Sean's credit, and I will say this to anybody. First off, look, to Sean's credit, he gave me a career. Bless him. God bless him, and I am thankful every day for that career. Second, Sean is a remarkable producer. I don't love his work as a director. Mm-hmm. I love his work as a producer. Mm-hmm. He understands how to put value on screen like almost no one else I've ever worked with. There's one other person, my partner Brian Sexton, who is better than Sean in this regard. Mm-hmm. But I am telling you, anything I needed, Sean got it. The problem is, dude, it would be like me asking I wanted pop songs in the movie. I wanted there to be some pop songs in this movie. And they looked at me and they laughed. They were like, there was literally not $1 for a pop song. So if you want to write a pop song, we'll throw it in the movie.
Right.
So there just wasn't any more money. So, yeah, look, all of the in-jokes that I put in the movie, all the referential stuff, I had to get all of that for free. If it cost $1, Sean would have said no. So it was me going around borrowing, from anybody I could to get those items in the film.
Mm-hmm. So it was basically stretching $1 to make $1.50 at that point, like doing anything and everything you could at that point. And I know, I think I read the effects budget was only about $250,000. Less than that. Yeah. And every penny of that and then some is then on screen.
Well, here's the thing that happened with the effects. So Bob Kurtzman, who is truly one of my best friends to this day, we were literally just on the phone with each other yesterday. And Bob does all the effects work for my new company, for Skeleton Crew. He does everything, and he's directing a film for us. So Bob's amazing. Anyway, Bob and I met on the set of Army of Darkness. We had talked on the phone several times, and then I went out to this desert location they had out in California where they were shooting the castle stuff. And that's when I asked Bob to talk to Sam Raimi to get me the Necronomicon, and Sam handed it to me in a Ziploc bag. It's a true story. So here's the thing, Bob had, I said to Bob, I said, look, I want you to, once we had gone through pre-production together and once we'd really been working side by side, I was at K&B shop every single day of the pre-production of that show. And after we'd worked together for a few months, creating all this stuff, I said to Bob, I said, dude, listen, these effects better than anybody. I want you to be my second unit director, because I know that there are going to be times I'm going to say to you, what's the best way to shoot this? Like, you show me what this is. And I want you to get credit for those shots. I want you to get credit as somebody who helped me make this movie. So Bob and I became inseparable at that point. So here's what happens, especially with the reshoots, when we added the camper material and the split Michelle Clooney effect.
Right.
Bob never said no to me. We are heading into those reshoots, and Greg Nicotero walks over to me and goes, Marcus, you have cost me so much fucking money. I was like, what? He said, I am out of pocket on this movie now. Because
interesting.
Because they had run out of money. And then Bob was like, fuck it, I'm making this great. This is going to be a great movie. And just kept pumping effects into it. So would take guys off other films and have them working on my movie. So I'm telling you, and Greg and I, Greg's awesome. We get along. And Howard's amazing because he sculpted half the stuff in that film. But I'm telling you, it was because of the relationship that Bob and I had that Bob truly, took $1.50 and turned it into $10.
I mean,
yeah.
The effects work in this movie is beautiful, and I think
they're extraordinary.
It's you know, and it's one of those things where you compare it to some of the more maybe the better received Friday films, and this is so much gorier. There is so much more, and it's not a slasher movie. It is a body horror movie. It owes a lot to, say, Cronenberg.
Absolutely.
So how much in the back of your head, how much do you think you're thinking, I know that there may be some reaction to having Jason not in it so much. I need to make this the best effects I can.
Okay, here's the thing. I promised myself I would make the single goriest movie ever. Like, I was and by the way, I was thinking, the elevator opening in The Shining. I was not thinking other Friday the 13th movies. I was like, I'm going to make a splatter fest. But here was the thing. I'm going to make it with great actors. I'm not gonna chintz out or cheese out. I'm not gonna do a slashed throat in the movie. I'm not doing any of that. We've seen it 1,000 times, and we've seen it done incredibly well. So how is it that this movie's going to get differentiated? Well, I'm kind of making a monster movie here. And the other part of it was because I see Jason as a monster. I don't know why everybody wants to make him a pro wrestler. He's not. He is a demon. He is a zombie. He's whatever you want to throw at him. I mean, from part 6 on, he is a zombie. He's zombie Jason. So, okay, so he's not of this world anymore. I don't want to watch him kill in this sort of polite, like, oh, a knife. All right, great. Oh, you hit someone with another machete. Great. To me, it was like, how do we up the ante on this? How do we up the stakes? And the other part of it was, all of the people who become Jason in the movie become Jason in the movie. And that's why I have the reflective shots throughout the film where they see themselves and they see Jason staring back at them. And also, I thought at the end of the movie, I'm going to bring the hero back. I'm going to bring Frankenstein's monster back up out of those floorboards. And in every theater I was in back then, people lost their fucking minds. And for me, it was like, look, here's the thing. I never thought there would be a backlash about the movie. I never did. And I'll tell you why. Because I'm such a huge fan of these movies, and I was making the movie as a fan that I wanted to see.
Right.
I wanted to see this movie.
And I would say I agree with that. And I would say there's a difference. Like, sometimes you watch a movie of a long-running franchise, and you can tell the person has either no regard or outright contempt for the characters. Freddy versus Jason, I'm looking at you. And then you have a movie like this and Jason X where you're like, okay, we want to do something new, but we also love what's come before it.
Right. Absolutely.
How do you balance what you want to do as a filmmaker and wanting to put your own stamp on the material versus audience expectation?
Look, I always want to make a movie for the audience. What's frustrating for me about Jason Goes to Hell is that people's need to see the same movie over and over again. Their need to have a McDonald's burger it is so frustrating because what I did was I gave them a McDonald's burger that just had some kind of awesome new sauces on it. And some cool, like, there was a side salad with it, so it was a little nutritious. There were better fries. Like, I tried to create a better meal out of it. And what happens is that the palate of the audience was such that they had been fed the same thing so many times that it's kind of like when you give a kid lobster. Well, the kid goes, ugh, what's that? Well, when that kid grows up, they're going to love that lobster.
Right.
And that seems to kind of be what's happening with Jason Goes to Hell, is that people are growing up, they're watching the movie again and going, wait a second, hold on. This was kind of cool. Like, this isn't what I remember it being.
And I want to talk about turning that burger into like beef Wellington or lobster in a moment, because I think that's a wonderful analogy, and I think it's very accurate. But I want to backtrack a little bit to what you just said a few moments ago about the actors that were playing Jason were Jason.
Yes.
You're very vocal about how much you appreciate what Kane Hodder brings to the table as Jason.
I adore him. I adore him.
Can you tell me some of the strengths he brings to the movie when he's assisting these characters that are portraying the character?
Totally. Yeah, and it was funny because I know somebody was talking about Stephen Culp and some quotes in Crystal Lake Memories, because I think Stephen got annoyed with some of it. Because look, Stephen's a classically trained actor. He's a brilliant actor, and he's an amazing guy. But here's the thing, what Kane does, and why Kane for me is the best Jason. And I understand there are other people who love their Jason more, and that's great. The reason I love Kane is that, and remember, Kane was the stunt coordinator on the entire film, so he was with me every day of the movie. He has an actor's methodology about the way he plays Jason. So a turn of a head, a flick of a wrist, all of those things. That's a body. That's a Tolkien-esque body of language that this guy's created, that he adheres to and that he understands implicitly. And so when we were working with the other actors, with Andy Block, with Stephen Culp, and with my brother Kip at the end of the movie, he went through chapter and verse with these actors, how they moved, what they did. And look, yes, I think Stephen Culp, in hindsight, was a little annoyed by it because I think Stephen's the kind of actor who wants to discover the performance, doesn't want somebody else telling him what the performance is. Of course, my response to that is, Stephen, you are now playing Kane.
Right.
You're playing. I mean, let's put it this way. Tom Hanks went and studied the little boy that they got for the beginning of Big. He didn't go the other way around. He didn't tell the kids, study me. He went and studied that child so that he could understand how that child acted and behaved and moved, so that he could be accurate to that child in Big. This was the same idea, but with a maniacal serial killer. And so Kane was so patient and lovely and funny with each actor that had to become him. And I said to him, by the way, from the beginning, when I handed him the script, and trust me, Kane was disappointed when he saw that he got blown up on page 10. He was not happy. Okay? But then when I expressed what I was trying to do and how I wanted it to be, and that I wanted him to teach all of these other actors how to move like him, to give it that performance. Well, he was over the moon about that. Plus, the fact is, I also said, Kane, I want you, not only that, but I also want you to play a character that is you, where you're out of the makeup. And in fact, I want you to tell yourself to go fuck yourself.
I think he calls him a pussy, if I remember.
He does.
Yep.
He does. He says he wasn't nothing but a big old pussy anyway. Which for me, and the audience that got the joke, anyone who knew that was Kane Hodder, oh my God. I mean, it was such a glorious moment in the movie. But, this is also, Kane is also the arm of Freddy Krueger. So he's all over the movie. And so his language was essential to making the film. I needed to have him by my side every day. Yeah.
Aside from Culp, how did the other actors and actresses react to Hodder's kind of direction of them?
Great. I can't remember one moment where anyone balked or anyone had a problem with it.
Okay.
My brother Kip is, again, classically trained NYU circle in the square actor who's award-winning and been working since he was 14 on Broadway. And he was like, bring it on, Kane. Like, tell me everything I need to know about the movie. Like, let's do it. And Kip matched moment for moment what Kane would have done. And Kane would even run through the actions so they could watch. Richard Gant, who's just an extraordinary actor and a lovely human being. He also, jumped right in. Look, by the way, Stephen Culp, for my money, gives one of the best performances in the movie. I adore him in the film. And by the way, when he becomes Jason, he is incredible. He is actually just frightening in that role.
Right. And that's what struck me when I read his quotes in Crystal Lake Memories, is because he is so good in that role, and then to kind of like poo-poo it just seemed odd.
Well, I also I think there's also, Stephen at the time when Crystal Lake Memories was being written, he'd agreed to do the interview, but let's be honest, he was doing things like 13 Days with Kevin Costner. He was playing Bobby Kennedy. He had moved on to a part of his career where he's doing other things, and I think that the question just kind of annoyed him. So that's, again, I do not know this. We've never spoken about what's in Crystal Lake Memories, Stephen and I. And I love Stephen. We've kept in touch. But I think that there is. I think when any legit actor is being asked about, like, well, did Kane teach you how to do the blah, blah, blah? I think he's sort of like, you know what? No, I did my own performance. Thanks.
So the hackles go up, sure.
I get it. Yeah, that's just an actor thing, and I respect it. I respect where he's coming from as well. That being said, Kane was there to and by the way, Steven nailed it. Like, he's really good. He's so scary in the middle. Like, I love when he goes through that police station. Come on now. I mean, he's great. And he threw me over the front counter. That's the first moment in the police station. That's me going over the counter. And I'm telling you, like, he came right at me and grabbed me, and then I had to toss myself over. But he was great and scary, like really scary coming at you. So
you had your John Landis in American Werewolf in London moment of getting to do your own stunt. Excellent.
Absolutely. It's very funny. In that shot, I go flying over the counter, and the camera kept missing me. My DP, the brilliant Bill Dill, he kept missing the moment, and I had to keep we reshot that I think 4 times. I went over the counter, and I think he actually was missing it just to kind of play with me a little bit because I was doing a stunt. And on the 4th time, I landed really hard behind that counter, and you just hear me behind the counter go, "Cut! Did you fucking get it that time, Bill?"
Yeah, we got it.
yeah, got it, Adam. Done. Moving on.
So, speaking of other actors, I think one thing that can be said about this movie, I think this is neck and neck with probably the final chapter in terms of being like the best acted movie of the entire series overall. And I think part of it is like you have a really great cast. Yeah. One of those characters, actually, before I even get to this character, his office like Rusty Schwimmer and Leslie Jordan, seeing their chemistry together, it kind of changed your perception of the film. I didn't quite get what that perception was and what it became. So could you talk a little bit about how your perception changed of like what this movie could be, seeing them interact with one another?
Okay, here's what happened. That actually happened in the casting process, not in the shooting process. So what happened with the movie was Joey B was actually written based on a guy that I grew up next to in New York, a guy named Joe Bologna. And I'm sure you know who Joe Bologna is, but the lead of My Favorite Year, he's an extraordinary storied actor, brilliant guy. So I'd written it based on him. So I brought in all these guys to read the role, including my uncle Ned Eisenberg, who, by the way, this is a fun fact. Ned Eisenberg plays Eddie in The Burning.
Okay.
Yes, he's the one who gets killed with the shears on the raft after nearly raping the girl in the lake. Which, by the way, talk about foreshadow that's the first Miramax movie. That's Harvey's first movie.
Jesus, yeah.
And that scene's in the movie. I'm like, wow, Ned, you had to act out Harvey's thing. Wow. So anyway, so I'd offered it to all these sort of like New York, sort of tough guy actors because I wanted it to have that flavor. And so what happened was Rusty came in to read for Joey B's wife, Shelby, who was the one who ran the restaurant for him, right? So she comes in, she gives an audition that was out of control, like just brilliant audition for Shelby. She was amazing. Well, at that point, the assistant casting director had to leave, and I was exhausted. So I said to Rusty, I pulled her aside, I said, listen, you just booked the role. I don't care who comes in for this role after you. You're it. You're my pick. You're done. She's like, you're kidding. You're telling me in the room? I said, I'm telling you in the room. I need a favor. She says, whatever you need. Absolutely. I said, listen, can you read the part of Joey B with the other actresses that are coming into audition? I said, I still want them to, I still want them to get in the room. I want to meet them and do all that. But I'm exhausted. Can you just read the Joey B part for me? Because I think you're brilliant. And I just want a good actor opposite them so I know what I'm getting. Okay. She says, whatever you need. If I'm in the movie, you got it. Anything.
Right.
So she sits down. She starts reading Joey B opposite a bunch of other women that came in to read Shelby. And she is so much better as Joey B than I could ever have imagined a guy doing it. that we finished the day, I turned to her, I said, guess what? You just got an upgrade. You're Joey B. She's like, what? I said, you're that character. Yeah, I'm writing your partner's. That's going to be a guy as you know. I'm going to switch the roles. You're amazing. And so I turned to my casting directors, Barry Moss and David Giella, who are both. Barry left us a while ago, but David's still around. He's amazing, and they're both brilliant men. And they were Broadway guys. Like they cast the entire run of the Cosby Show, and they cast tons of Broadway shows. So they knew all the best actors in town. And I said, I need a guy. I would really love it if he was really tiny, because Rusty is so big. I was like, I want someone tiny. And they said, there is only one guy you need to see. And that's when I met Leslie Jordan. And he came in, he read opposite. I had Rusty come in. She read with him, did a chemistry read on the first read. Literally, I was like, we're done. Got it. Cast. And the guy who plays their son, Ward, is one of my best friends since growing up. One of Nolan, my best friends, Adam Craner. We grew up together. He's been a friend of mine since we were 8 years old.
And it's a wonderful warmth between those two characters. And I love how they go from being like these kind of like grumpy, frumpy, like this is, you know, like get that baby out of here. We're running a business. Like babies are banned from diners. Like what the hell?
It'll be just as cute on the fucking street. Now get it out.
To like really protecting the baby and knowing that, like there's no good outcome for this.
Yeah.
Like knowing, I think that really adds a lot of pathos to it. I really enjoy the humor and the warmth they brought. But the character we have to talk about, and I think you know who it is. I think you know where it's going.
My man
who has little girls put in hot dogs through donuts.
Damn Skippy.
Creighton Duke. Is this Stephen Williams just thinking he's in? Is this the Stephen Williams life story? And you're just letting him camp roll? Like, how did this character develop? Because he is a fan favorite. And he's just fucking awesome. I mean, he's like, amazing.
Once again, this role, we had cast someone else. And it was very different. Originally, the bounty hunter was going to be played by John Rubinstein, who's a brilliant theater-trained actor from New York, who played Pippin on Broadway, was Tony nominated for that show. But also, if you look up John Rubinstein, you'd be like, wow, he was in like 10 television series and blah, blah, blah. And his agent pulled him out of it truly like two and a half weeks before we were supposed to shoot. And we were scrambling. And I was like, what the hell? And so John and I got along. We'd done all these camera tests. And he wore this beige duster, right? And a beige hat, right? So he had this whole kind of cowboy look that we wanted. We wanted this sort of Western feel to it, even though he's playing the Quint of the movie. And so I said, you know what? I said that happened. And my cast directors came to me and said, how do you feel about a black actor playing it? And I was like, sounds great. Just show me, you know, the best people that you think would fit. And I saw a number of people, including Yaphet Kotto, read for it. So I had some great, you know, African-American actors come in for the role. Well, Yaphet was interesting too, because when I heard he was coming in, I checked with New Line. I said, wow, Yaphet Kotto is going to come in and read for it. And their response was they didn't want me to cast Yaphet because he had already been in Freddy's Dead.
Okay.
And they didn't want to cross the streams, which, of course, at that point, I should have known immediately, like, oh, because you're going to put Freddy and Jason together, so you want them to be separate universes that will collide, and then there won't be any overlap. I got it. But here was the thing. Stephen Williams came in to read for it. Him and I, he read, and then him and I sat for, I think, about 30 to 45 minutes just talking, just hanging out and talking. And he left the room, and I was like, I don't need to see anybody. By the way, Tony Todd came in to read for Creighton.
Okay.
He did. And he was great. And that voice. Oh, my God, that voice.
Right.
Stephen came in, and look, Stephen has something that is a very rare thing for all actors. There's a real rarity. Stephen has crazy in his eyes. Steven, for me, is like Mel Gibson, and I don't mean anything politically.
I understand, yes.
There is a light behind his eyes that is so extraordinary and frightening and fascinating. He's one of those guys that brings the moth right to his flame. And that's what I wanted for Creighton. Like, I wanted this guy who was so sadistic, but you can't resist him, that there's something about him that makes you want to follow him into hell. And I knew I needed to have that in the movie because otherwise Steven is never going to listen to anything this guy says. You know, John LeMay's character is going to be lost if he doesn't have someone to follow. And so for me, you know, he became Obi-Wan Kenobi of our movie. And the minute Steven jumped on board, first he put on John Rubinstein's coat and hat, and truly looked like a vagrant. He looked like a homeless person walking into Crystal Lake. I was like, okay, this is terrible. So I sent my costumer. My costumer was like, she was like, what do I do? Like, what do you want? And I said, listen, I want you to keep the cowboy theme, but I want this guy to walk in. I want for everybody in the room to go, oh. Like, if you can just take our breath away. I said, I'm leaving it up to you. I said, I'm telling you, I want the, you know, and I gave her the poster for the Burt Reynolds movie, The Man Who Loved Cat Dancing. If you ever see the poster, you'll see where my idea for Creighton comes from.
Okay.
But he walked onto set the first time in that hat and coat. And I'm telling you, people were applauding, and he hadn't even acted yet. Because they were like, okay, this is the coolest thing ever, this guy. In the middle of this completely beige town. Like, the color palette of the movie was very specific. And Creighton was black blade just tearing through town. Just this completely singular image. No one in the movie is dressed like Creighton at all.
Come on, get up. Why don't you blow me, Chief? Right after your girlfriend there gets through.
That's my lady you're talking about.
Well, now, see, she is only your lady because she ain't had a taste of the Duke yet. Careful, Chief. I don't think you really know who I am.
I know who you are. The last thing we need around here is some freako bounty hunter causing trouble. I want you out of this town, and I want you out now.
Now, that is very colorful, Chief.
Randy! Take him out in my car. I'll be out in a minute.
All right, let's go.
He's coming for you, Diana, and your daughter. Lock your doors.
Well, I remember when we did our show in the movie, they're like, why is Creighton Duke arrested? And I'm like, I think we're talking to a white woman. I'm like,
yes.
Because he's like,
he tries to steal Diana's body. That's true. That is actually
so in your. That's why. Okay,
that is
he's
why.
So in your face, like there's something so transgressive.
Yeah.
How unfortunate was it you didn't get to maybe like give him the whole backstory that you wanted to give him? Because I'd watch a Creighton Duke movie.
Well, I'll give you some good news on that in a minute. But we did shoot it. We shot his backstory. And by the way, the when you guys talked about it on the show, you got it close. It's not quite right.
Okay.
What the backstory was, and we always called it the Mary Jane Rottencrotch speech. The story on Creighton, which, by the way, happens exactly where you guys nailed it. I was so excited that you nailed it. It was so good. It's when he says, give me 2 minutes. Give me 2 minutes and I'll give you your baby. And in the cut, he just hands her the baby. You're like, what the? You said 2 minutes. That's, wow. All right. Time folds where you come from. No, he spent 2 minutes monologuing. And he told this story about a young black guy out on Crystal Lake with his girl, who we all fondly called Mary Jane Rottencrotch in the office. The boat gets overturned by something underneath. And this young man watches the love of his young life grabbed by Jason Voorhees and dragged down to the depths of Crystal Lake. And he dives in to try to get her. He keeps trying to get her. And she's just gone and never to be seen again. And he, from that day forward, and he's 17, I think, in the story, he pledged he would not stop until he avenged her, until he found out what that monster was. Mm-hmm. And so the rest of his life is all about getting Jason Voorhees. So he becomes a bounty hunter, but only becomes this detective to search out who is this guy, what is he, what magic is there, and to get enough money to be able to hunt him. Mm-hmm. And that's his whole life, is hunting Jason. So yeah, that was the backstory on him. So it was his girlfriend. It wasn't his wife. It was his girlfriend. But it was his first love. It was his crush, and he's never loved since.
And that is just such fertile ground to be explored. And I think
Isn't it?
Really is. It really is.
So look, here's the thing. Because the rights are such a freaking mess, I mean, just such a mess. One of the things that Skeleton Crew's been doing for quite some time is we are working on a project for Steven and I to do together. Mm-hmm. His manager and I have been talking about, trying to put this whole thing together. And so I am going to work with Steven again. It is something inspired by the work that we've done together before. It's not Creighton, but it's the next best thing.
So it's Creighton-esque. It's Creighton adjacent.
Yes. Okay. Adjacent.
I think that would work. That would work. So I do have to ask, the little girl pushing a hot dog through a donut line. Improv, scripted? Because it's a head scratcher.
That's
okay.
Here's the thing. That and I take no responsibility for that line whatsoever in the writing. That was Dean Laurie. Dean Laurie wrote that line. Mm-hmm. It's a beautiful piece of writing. It is also the crux of Dean's entire sense of humor. It really is. And it's funny when you realize that Dean was a writer and executive producer of things like Arrested Development. So Dean has gone on to write big comedy. He wrote Major Payne. He wrote My Wife and Kids for Damon Wayans. Dean is a really funny dude and very bizarre. And when he wrote that line, I remember I almost pissed myself when he just said the line out loud to me. We were writing it like 3:00 in the morning. And he said that line, and I was like, dude, no one will ever forget it. Like, it'll be the most quotable thing from this movie. And it was. Now, it was funny because there's that scene, the very opening of the movie, when Creighton is watching the FBI blow up Jason, right? Mm-hmm. In the script, he doesn't say anything. He's just sitting on the hill watching this. And Dean walks over and he's like, God, it just seems really kind of plain. And he's just sitting there. I said, yeah. I said, Steven, come here. I said, I want you to just watch this, and that they didn't get him. And I just want you to say, I don't think so. And Steven was like, oh, hell yeah.
Got it. Yep.
And Dean literally walked over to me and kissed me on the cheek. It's like, holy shit. I'm like, dude, it's a good line. It ain't sticking a hot dog through a donut good, my man. It never will be. So the writing process in the movie was actually incredibly fun for Dean and I. Like we were really good bouncing stuff off of each other and complicating things. And again, we both have a sense of humor. And by the way, look, my favorite Friday the 13th movie is Part 6. Mm-hmm. And I love it because of the sense of humor, because I find that movie to really, I think it takes itself very seriously and not seriously at all at the same time, which is what I love about it. And so I wanted Jason Goes to Hell to have that same kind of sense of humor that, these movies don't have to be morose. By the way, I think a current trend in horror movies right now is that everything is so damn depressing. Mm-hmm. And I don't know, man, I grew up on horror movies that were fun.
I'm going to push back on that a little bit. I would say we reached the nadir of that with, and I like this movie, Rob Zombie's Halloween 2. I think that we came from say 03 to 09, where horror was very dark, and we were in a dark time, we're in an even darker time.
We're in a darker time now, and here's the thing. I would agree with you in that's the low point of sort of grisly bleakness in the sort of Hostel, Saw, Rob Zombie's Halloween, sort of just shit. Like you're in the shit. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the Midsommar crying for 2 hours and 40 minutes.
Sure.
I'm talking about this like malaise.
That's Ari Aster's thing. What Ari Aster needs a mental health counselor. And seeing that I'm graduating on Tuesday with my master's,
I think you need to reach out, man. I think it'll help.
So,
I feel
absolutely. Like I just want to be like, point out on the doll where you were touched, dude.
It's
like
totally true. It's so true, dude. So
there's
true.
movies like the new Child's Play is really funny. I thought
it is funny. It is
Crawl was like really fun. Get Out, I thought, had like bits of wicked humor. Us had bits of humor in it. There are some slugs. There's definitely that, but there are also some really funny out there type of thing.
I think that the genre in general is getting a little self-important because it's become it's a blessing and a curse because the genre is now way more respected. Shit, when I did Jason Goes to Hell, I mean, we were considered porn. Mm-hmm. Like no one treated us like we were legit movies, even though we were the movies that kept every one of the studios afloat.
Right.
We cost nothing, and all we made was profit. Mm-hmm. And you'd have $100 million stinker that starred a bunch of big name, actors, and that would get awards. Yet we're the ones holding those movies up. But now, because they make more money, there is more respect for horror. I also think the audience grew up that loved horror, so they became executives, and it all trickles up. But for me, the curse part of that blessing is then suddenly when we start to cast big names in horror movies and things of that nature, we start to lose that sense of humor. And for me, you even watch the Todd Browning, Universal movies, or even better, the RKO movies. Yeah. They're all wickedly funny.
Oh, anything James Whale did, this Old Dark House, Bride of Frankenstein.
Yeah.
They're uproarious. I mean, The Invisible Man is an amazing comedy. It's one of the funniest movies of all time.
Yes, it is. And I think that to some degree we're losing that a little bit in horror. By the way, not entirely. There are a lot of people, I think Ready or Not looks fun, and I think that's going to be clever and well done. I think there is, I think there's space. My latest movie, Secret Santa, is a flat out horror comedy. Mm-hmm. And it's gory. It's, Bob Kurtzman coming back to do all the effects. But it is really funny. And so I'm hoping to carry a little bit of that torch for our genre. Look, I will say things like The Babysitter. I was like, oh, all right, that's interesting. Like, okay. I always enjoy when someone embraces the genre and can still poke fun at it without poking fun at the people who love the genre.
Yes.
And that's like, for me, look, I have so much respect for Cabin in the Woods. I have tremendous respect for that movie. Even though I get why people didn't connect with it, there's something about, look, I think the ending is a problem. Beyond the Deus Ex Machina of it all, I think the fact that our female lead is willing to murder somebody to, that bugged the crap out of me. But I love the fuck you to all genre that movie gives. Like, I think that's brilliant. And I look, I love Tucker and Dale versus Evil.
Same.
Great movie. It's a great movie. And when you watch on the same disc, Tucker and Dale Are Evil, where you see the movie from the kid's point of view. Have you ever watched that?
I have not. I didn't even know that existed.
Dude, it's on the disc of the movie. It's on the Blu-ray. There's an extra on the disc. It's like a 45-minute version of the movie called Tucker and Dale Are Evil.
This is why streaming is bullshit. Okay, I gotta.
Yes. Boy, do I agree with you on that. Look, I mean, I gotta tell you, we have to say physical media. We are slitting the throat of anybody who cares about any interesting content that goes along with these movies. And it's, I think it's essential. Tucker and Dale Are Evil, you will love. You will be blown away by
I will definitely watch that.
It's so clever.
on those lines too, like I love pretty much anything that Wingard and Barrett have done almost, but
Yep.
I love You're Next. I love,
dude. It's one of my favorites.
Mm-hmm.
It's one of my favorites. I think it's a remarkable movie, and it's one of those movies that when I meet genre people who don't know that movie, I'm like, then you don't love this genre.
All right. So I want to be respectful of your time here. So do you have time for a couple more questions?
Of course.
Or are you,
yeah.
okay,
No,
right.
I'm good.
So let's get back to the beef Wellington or the
Okay.
lobster. So
Sure.
at the time, the reaction to Jason Goes to Hell's, it's mixed. And
Sure. Oh, yeah.
fans can be vocal, fans can be cruel. Now, this is thankfully a pre-Twitter time when this comes out.
Yes.
How did the critique of the movie affect you at the time? Like, what were some of the toxic things you heard at that time?
I got to tell you something. I heard very little of it.
Okay.
Because the crazy thing about Jason Goes to Hell is it got better reviews than almost all the other Friday the 13th.
Mm-hmm.
The reviews were good. Because I think the critics, unlike the audience, was like, wait a minute, this is well acted. And it's got pace. And it's kind of funny. And this is not what we were expecting.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, even the New York Times gave us a good review.
Mm-hmm.
The Washington Post loved the movie. So there were a number of things there that were, that critics kind of held on. By the way, we got slaughtered by a ton of critics as well. Don't get me wrong. Look, the fact the movie opened number 2 in the U.S. the only thing that beat us was The Fugitive. The Fugitive had come out the week before, and we knew we're never going to beat The Fugitive. It's never going to happen. But the fact the movie did, open with $8 million, and again, $8 million in 1993 was a big deal. Like that was the front page of Variety on Monday morning was top spot goes to Fugitive, rest of box office goes to hell.
So you're riding pretty high come Monday morning.
Dude, my first 2 meetings, I met with Robert De Niro in Tribeca, and I met with Francis Ford Coppola at Sony. Those were my first 2 meetings. Okay, I was courted by a bunch of people, and New Line was doing a 3-picture deal with me. And then Ted Turner bought New Line, threw all the horror people out. All of us, we all lost our deals. And Coppola went bankrupt again. And I was supposed to do a ninja zombie movie for Zoetrope.
With Robbie De Niro? Please say with Robert De Niro.
Oh, dude,
please.
no, I have no idea. I just know Francis was in love with horror. He had just done Dracula. He was doing Frankenstein. Like, he loved horror. So he just wanted me to, create, which I was psyched about. And then I got offered a ton of horror sequels. Like, a ton. But, dude, Pumpkinhead 2 and Amity and Leprechaun Back to the Hood, it was like all that kind of stuff, and I was like, no, man, I don't want to be a part number guy. Like, I knew a lot of those guys, and I have respect for anybody who loves being that guy. If you love being that guy, awesome. I'm telling you, I met a lot of those guys who hated being that guy, and I was like, no, I want to say original stuff. I want to say new things. So I disappeared into, I went into indie filmmaking, and my second film was a big hit at Sundance. I was all over the world. It was one I was telling you, myself and Karen Kazuma, the two of us were everywhere together because she had done Girl Fight, I had done Let It Snow. And suddenly I had all these jobs in TV, and I was doing other stuff. But I yearned to be able to go back to horror and tell original stories. That was really what I wanted to do. In the meantime, so I wasn't really listening. There wasn't any noise in my ear about Jason Goes to Hell. Like, it wasn't getting to me. And by the way, I had seen the movie theater several times in packed houses where people were applauding and losing their minds and having a great time. So it's like, great, audience loves the movie, I'm happy. And then the internet happens. And I guess there's someone who's patient zero on this. It's been told to me in the past, and I never remember who this person is. But I guess there was some guy who did some horrible rant about the movie and sort of set all of this in motion as far as the kind of vitriol that came out about the film. Here's the thing. I get it. If it's not your bag, it's not your bag. And no movie is going to be for everybody. That's a silly fight to have. When I talk to most haters of the movie, even if they've wished me ass cancer, which has happened a couple times, I'll ask them pretty point blank. So you hate that I blew Jason up 10 minutes in. Yeah, fucking sucks. Okay, cool. You hate that there's not a hockey mask throughout the whole movie. Yeah, what the hell? I mean, that's the move. That's Friday 13th is a hockey mask. And I go, well, hang on. Hockey mask didn't show up for 3 movies. So it's not really Friday the 13th. It's kind of what Jason became. But I hear you. That's the icon. I get it. Okay, so you don't like that there's a hockey mask in the movie. Did you like the kills? Oh, dude, some of the best kills in any of the movies. Okay. Did you like the look of Jason? Yeah, it's badass. It's fucking fucked up and weird. It's really cool. Yeah. Okay, cool. Who's your favorite Jason? Kane Hodder. Kane Hodder rules. Okay. Did you think the acting was good? Yeah, I mean, yeah. Did you find the characters like at the diner were funny? Oh man, they were them and the people in Part 5. Like those are the best. Okay. So what I'm hearing is that you don't like that there's not a hockey mask in more of the body of the film. That's really it.
Right.
That's really it. Yes, body hopping goes along with the mask. Got it. But that's the complaint.
Yep.
And that's when I go, great, so you want a Mexican wrestling movie. That's what you want. Like, that's what you want. You want a guy in a mask with a machete. That's it. That's what you want. And by the way, the remake gave you that. I don't know a lot of remake too. I don't know a lot of people who love the remake.
Right.
So I go, they gave you what you wanted in that. Boy, did they. I mean, they really gave you what you wanted.
Mm-hmm.
How did it play out? Was it fun? Was that a good time?
Well, I'll give you my really brief thought on the remix. I enjoy it, I think, more than most.
Sure.
And I tend to be pretty forgiving. Like, I just like stuff.
Totally.
The difference between, let's say, Friday the 13th in 2009 versus 1980 to 1984. Yep. 80 to 84, I got kids that I cared about.
Yeah.
Like, Jerry's very fond of saying, I agree, if you took Jason out of the final chapter, you have a phenomenal coming-of-age teen comedy.
Absolutely.
You don't get that you didn't get that in horror movies in the mid to late aughts. You got, and maybe it's because I'm older and maybe I'm wrong, but I work with a lot of like high school students in my role, and they're not like this. There's a lot of great kids. These are mean, ugly, despicable kids. I don't want to root for the killer in a movie. I want to feel bad when these kids get offed.
Totally agree with you.
That's what I think the biggest complaint is with the remake.
But by the way, look, here's the other part of it. You know, you watch Wes Craven put together the group of kids in Scream. Mm-hmm. Those are kids. Like, those are kids that are likable, they're kind, they're fun, they're good friends. And when they betray each other, it's horrible. You're really, like, gut punched by that.
Right.
So I totally agree. The other problem is, by 2009, everything is an Abercrombie and Fitch model ad. Everything. And, you know, look, I have a fondness for the remake of Texas Chainsaw, Marcus Nispel's movie. I have a fondness for that movie, even though, and in spite of the fact that everybody in that van is a freaking supermodel. And the greatness of Toby's movie is that it's a group of people that look like you might hang out with.
Right.
And there's a relatability. Look, I mean, by the way, there was a woman I wanted to cast in Jason Goes to Hell, who I was not allowed to cast. I kid you not. The person who's going to play Carrie Keegan's role originally was an actress named Laurie Holden, who, if you watch The Walking Dead, she was Andrea for the first 3 seasons.
Yep.
Laurie's a personal friend. She's awesome. She's an amazing person, and she's a brilliant actor. And she was, you know, a close buddy who hung out with us all the time. She came in for the audition. She blew everybody out of the water. She was incredible. And Sean turned to me and said, "You can't have her." And I said, "Why?" He said, "She's too beautiful. They'll hate her. The audience will hate her." Now, I think there's a whole psychology behind that as well that has less to do with Sean's point and more to do with Sean's psyche. That being said, I was not allowed to hire the prettiest girl. I couldn't have her. I had to have a fight about Allison Smith. And I said, because I had seen Allison Smith when I was a little kid, I saw Allison play Annie on Broadway. She was the second Annie on Broadway. Right. And I saw her play Annie, and I turned to Sean. I said, "You're not taking Annie away from me." I literally said that. And he gave in on that one. But, dude, I'm telling you, like, this weird model casting, I just go, you're missing the point on horror movies. They have to represent the audience. Otherwise, the audience isn't frightened. They don't identify with these kids. If they're all gorgeous, what's the point? What I love about, let's say, even Scream, you know, Jamie Kennedy, who's not a bad-looking guy, but he's not a model.
Right.
He's just, he looks like the teenage version of Shaggy from Scooby-Doo.
Right.
So
totally
you're like,
agree.
I
totally
get that
agree.
guy. You know, it's why the new Spider-Man movies are so good. Because you recognize those kids. You go, oh, I could have been one of those kids. I like those kids.
You recognize those kids, and those kids also reflect the kind of world we live in now as well, which is really wonderful to see.
Absolutely.
Which is, I think, really important to see. So I have just two things left here really quick.
Cool. Go for it.
So you had mentioned Jason Lives, and I had actually put that in my notes. Like, similar to Jason Lives, Goes to Hell has a really tongue-in-cheek sense of humor, and there's a sense of awareness, like you know what you are at that point. I'm thinking in particular John LeMay's line about you're going to go to the lake, smoke a little dope, have a little sex, and get murdered. It's it's great delivery on that line too. It's perfect.
Yep.
How do you feel that now that maybe self-awareness and being tongue-in-cheek is better received? How have modern contemporary audiences received or reevaluated Jason Goes to Hell in 2019?
Well, here's the thing. I got offered right after Jason Goes to Hell. Okay. And the reason was because of all the stuff that I did in Jason Goes to Hell that was referential, which, by the way, up until that point, no one was doing that. Just no one was doing that. It wasn't while Friday 6 was absolutely a little more self-aware. Remember, my film, like, it poked all the holes in the genre. The first 10 minutes of that movie is a Friday the 13th movie in 10 minutes. It's like the speed bump version of a Friday the 13th movie. She makes every bad choice that every young, beautiful woman makes in a Friday the 13th movie.
Right.
All in the span of 6 minutes. She's done everything you're not supposed to do. So, including getting naked and taking a shower in this dark cabin. For what and for who? I mean, it's all ridiculous. But that was the point, was that we're flushing out Jason. We're doing all the things that get Jason to show up. So the movie was unique in that way. I think when people look back on it and realize that we were pre-Scream, there's a lot of people going, wait a second. There's a lot of what Scream is in this. You know? And look, the fact that I was universe building, that I think is really catching on with people. And I know some people lost their minds because I said Jason's a Deadite. Well, he is. So there. I love when people are like, that's not canon. I'm like, no, it's canon. Mine's a Friday the 13th movie. Your fan film is not a Friday the 13th movie. Mine's a Friday the 13th movie. It is canon. Sorry, guys.
I mean, you have the Necronomicon in the movie, so.
Right. Well, I have that and the dagger.
Right. Sam Raimi approved.
I put those things in the movie for very specific reasons, because my impression of look, I always love when people think like the timeline on a Friday 13th. Don't mess with the mythology. What mythology?
Oh my goodness!
It changes from movie to movie. What are you talking about?
I mean,
and so yeah, go ahead.
I love part 4, but Rob spends years hunting down his sister that was murdered that weekend.
Yes.
So
I mean, it's
not
ridiculous.
Timeline.
Right. And look, here's the thing. I wanted to put a salve on the franchise that would fix all of the timeline problems. If Pamela Voorhees makes a deal with the darkness to bring her Jason back, and he's a Deadite, whatever form of Deadite you want to call it, or maybe a Deadite we've never seen before, if he is Hell's assassin, well, then he can be any size, any shape, any color, he can be anything. And he can change. So he can get melted down by acid in a New York sewer and come back. He can do all of that because he's not of us now. He's not a zombie. He doesn't live by zombie rules either. He is this creature of hell.
Right.
He is the hell demon.
Well, if fans are willing to accept Jason as a zombie, which we are, I don't see why we can't accept him as other things as well.
Absolutely. And why not something so super cool as a Deadite?
Yeah.
Come on.
So I want to ask one last question, actually two last questions here. I want to talk very briefly about the movie you didn't get to make. So the end of Jason Goes to Hell has that shot, the one where audiences really go bananas for it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So when did you know you wanted to set the stage for Freddy versus Jason?
Here's what happened so I had been putting in all of the stuff like the Necronomicon, like the crate from Creepshow, the jungle gym from the Birds. I had put in all this great stuff. I had all these great props and all this. And I was with Dean and Noel in our apartment in Venice. And I can say this now because it's legal. They were getting stoned to the bejesus. I personally do not partake. So I was the clear-headed one, which is really showing you how low the bar was that night. And I said to the guy, we were trying to come up with cool things that we could put in the movie. And I said, I suddenly had this moment of clarity, and I went, wait a second. Doesn't New Line own Freddy outright? Isn't it 100% their property? And they were like, yeah, I think so. So I immediately jump up, and this was in the evening. I call Mike DeLuca and Mark Ordesky at home. I get both of them on the phone. I said, guys, I want Freddy's glove. And they were both like, for what? And I described what I wanted the last scene of the movie to be. And the laughter and excitement and joy in their voices. I've never heard two film executives ever that happy ever. And a few days later, a locked wooden box with the glove in it showed up at our our studio with truly there was a security guard who held it the whole time. He was with it the whole time. They really treated it like Fort Knox, which is so funny when you consider I got the Necronomicon in a Ziploc bag. So I knew I wanted to drag Jason to hell, and since Freddy's dead had already happened, I was like, well, Freddy is in hell. What if I have all these demons coming up out of hell to pull Jason down? What would be better than to have, head demon number one all of a sudden be Freddy Krueger? That's awesome. So by the way, that had nothing to do with making a Freddy versus Jason movie. That had to do with Adam going, I'm sending Jason to hell. Freddy's already there. Who better to pull him down? Sure. Okay.
But after that, though, you had some ideas about what Freddy versus Jason would be that involved survivors of the preview. So what was your idea?
My concept for Freddy versus Jason was that we open in a steam room, in Freddy's steam room. And Freddy he's got a teenager. He's doing the usual Freddy Krueger thing. And just as Freddy's about to slash through this kid, suddenly he hears something, turns to camera, and a fist just punches right into Freddy's face, and Freddy goes flying back. And there is Jason in Freddy's domain. And the two of them starts wailing on each other, and this teenage kid actually runs away, right? Tries to run away, and Jason just throws his machete behind him, skewering the teenager to the wall of the boiler room. And so you have this battle royale between Freddy and Jason just beating the shit out, just tearing each other to pieces. And suddenly the floor underneath them breaks and splits. And they're both on two opposite pieces of this flooring, and flames are just coming up between them. And you hear this booming voice, basically saying, enough. And you realize we're in hell. And Freddy and Jason are just constantly finding each other in hell to just keep beating the shit out of each other, right? The two rivals. And the idea was that both of them are hell's assassins. They've both been sent to hell by means of how they, were dispatched in the movies. And there's really only room enough for one of them. So they are sent back to our plane, and they have to get a certain number of souls, including Tommy Jarvis, Nancy, Tommy Jarvis and Nancy, and we had baby Stephanie grown up. She had grown. She was a young teen, and the chase is on for them to get these souls. The problem is that if either one of them gets them, the other one goes to hell forever, and Hell's assassin stays on Earth. So either Freddy or Jason is going to get to stay as the battle royale winner.
So you have a definitive winner in your concept.
Yes. And here's what's great. The person protecting Nancy and Tommy is Creighton Duke in a back brace.
Beautiful. So he survives.
So he survives, and he's the one, on the road trip to hell, keeping them safe from Freddy and Jason.
Can you reveal your winner?
Of course, it was Jason, man.
So how close does this come to at least go into script?
We met with them. I had several conversations with all the powers that be over this. Here was the problem. It almost became a life is too short scenario. You also have to remember Ted Turner bought New Line. And truly, all horror ended at New Line. I mean, that's a big part of why those two franchises went to sleep for so long. Was Ted Turner. So it really stalled out in the earliest stages only because, dude, they didn't write any movies for Freddy vs. Jason for a long time. And then they just started commissioning scripts left and right from everybody. I mean, I've read like 6 or 7 of those screenplays. Oh, my God. I mean, dude, the ideas were so bad. I was like, how is this so complicated, guys? Like it, and it was everybody trying to reinvent the genre, which I found really funny and ironic since I took so much heat for reinventing Jason. And they just weren't very good. Like the scripts just weren't great.
So you weren't into the idea of a burned, scarred cult leader named Dominic Necros taking the front and center in a Jason versus Freddy movie?
No, I really wasn't.
That didn't tickle the pickle? No?
I didn't find it. I didn't find that. Look, let's put it this way. In Jason Goes to Hell, Jason is still the bad guy the whole way through the movie. I don't care what body he hops into, and Creighton puts it perfectly. That he wears a person's skin like you wear a suit of clothes. It was always Jason. Jason's my villain. I don't want to Halloween 6 this and make somebody else a worse villain than Jason. What's the point of that? Like. He's the big bad. He's the shark in the water. You don't want Jaws to have some guy in a black coat who's controlling Jaws from the land. You just want Jaws.
Right. Agree.
So
absolutely.
You got Freddy, you got Jason. You don't really. I don't need the Predator to suddenly show up.
Right.
So no, I'm not a fan of any of that. I find the two of them more than enough. What I also think is hilarious is when you put Jason to sleep on a couch and then have an executive board meeting around a table where you discuss how you can kill Freddy while Jason's taking a nap. I don't find that particularly threatening either. So yeah.
So what's next for you? What do you have? You mentioned a project with Stephen Williams.
Yeah.
What do you have in the works right now? I've read there's a few different things that look pretty interesting.
Yes. We're doing a bunch of stuff. Well, as Santa is going to be on VOD in October, so we're really excited about that. And it's been in 22 festivals worldwide, and it's won a couple of those festivals as Best Picture. By the way, not in horror festivals either, where it won Best Picture, which is kind of amazing.
Excellent.
So it's getting a lot of love, which is awesome. That comes from the company that I formed with my wife Deborah, who has been my writing partner for the last couple decades, and also my best friend Brian Sexton, who is truly the most remarkable producer I've ever worked with. So the three of us formed Skeleton Crew a couple years ago. Secret Santa was the first one out of the gate. We have several things. Hell's Bells is the Stephen Williams project, Hell's Bells, which takes place on the south side of Chicago. And he is a badass motherfucker, and it is cool. It's the coolest thing we've ever written. So love that project. Then we've got a great movie that we're doing called Velocity, which I can't really say too much about, only because we are in contracts right now. But that's going to be the very next thing that's shot for Skeleton Crew. But it's a very cool movie. We also have Fat Camp Massacre.
Tell me about Fat Camp Massacre, please.
Oh, it's so good. So Fat Camp Massacre was brought to us by two remarkable producers and a lovely writer all three of them are terrific actresses as well. Heather Alt, Sarah Chaney, and Lindsay Hollister. Lindsay Hollister, you ever see the remake of Get Smart, the Steve Carell version?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. So Steve Carell has a very famous scene in that movie where he does the tango with this plus size woman. That plus size woman is the remarkable actress Lindsay Hollister, who wrote the first draft of Fat Camp Massacre. They brought us this project, and and Deb and I fell in love with them, fell in love with what they were trying to do, and we ended up shepherding the script and then rewriting with Lindsay, and now we've written it together with her. That movie is for people of size what Get Out was for people of color.
Okay. I'm one of those people of size, so I'm very interested.
Love it. It is the movie. Look, being large or being too skinny in this country, in our society, it's the last place that people think they can just be completely forward with you in the way that they speak to you about your body.
Right.
As though anybody should have anything to fucking say about your body. And the amount of bullying that goes on, the amount of body dysmorphia is so shameful and so disgusting. Instead of letting people be who they are and feel good about who they are. And look, I'm not talking about being unhealthful. I'm not talking about any of that. But the truth is that to shame people for any of this is so freaking disgusting, in my opinion, that when they brought us the concept for this movie, I was so overjoyed. I've had trouble with my weight my whole life. I've struggled with that, as have most of the people that I know, quite frankly. And this is the movie that the tagline of the movie is "Get ready for the real Hunger Games."
Oh boy. Okay.
And it's just a middle finger. The original tagline of the movie was "Never trust a skinny bitch." But I changed that because I was like, listen, people who are really skinny also have to deal with this bullshit too.
Yeah, well, the phrase is "jolly fat guy," not "jolly vegan." You know. Right.
Absolutely. So the movie is it's political, it's funny, but it is brutal. It is a brutal fucking movie.
When can we see that?
We should be shooting that movie next April. So I would say probably the beginning of 2021.
I will definitely keep our eye out.
That. Yeah.
So before we hit record, you mentioned you were actively seeking projects and you were looking for a diverse lineup of people: female filmmakers, filmmakers of color, queer filmmakers. Where can people reach out to you, right? And not to necessarily pitch, but if they want to reach out to you, where do professionally and online, where are the places to go? Here's
the best place to catch me. Okay. The truth is that I still rely tremendously on Facebook. I think Facebook is fantastic, and Facebook Messenger, anybody can hit me up there. So that's and I'm easy to get. I'm just Adam Marcus, at Adam Marcus. You can also get me on Twitter at Adam Marcus 13, or on Twitter at Skeleton Crew Pro. And and I'm also on Instagram at Skeleton Crew Pro. Excellent. So that's the best way to get a hold of me. Look, and by the way, one of the things we didn't talk about Jason Goes to Hell is that, one of the things I'm most proud about that movie and where I think the movie is aging incredibly well. It's the first Friday 13th movie where the director demanded there was as much, if not more, male nudity than female nudity.
Right.
The fact that there is this very weird, and I know you guys talked about it, very weird and very wonderful interracial homoerotic shaving scene and then kiss.
Yes. Thank you. I forgot to ask about what the hell's with the shaving.
What the hell's with the shaving? Honestly, the whole thing. Okay. I knew there was nothing I could show the audience that would really scare the crap out of them. I know I can cut people up, I can tear bodies in half, I can do all that stuff, and it's great fun, and everybody cheers and has a great time. But for me, I was like, who is my audience and what's going to actually get the core of their fear? I have never once been asked by a female audience member, what's up with that homoerotic shaving scene? Never once. Dudes, all the dudes ask about it. And when I turn to them, I go, why, you felt uncomfortable during that scene? That really bugged you, didn't it? Like, really got under your skin, didn't it? Mm-hmm. That's why it's there.
I love it. Absolutely love it. Well, I want to thank you, Adam, for being so generous with your time. I really appreciate it. I have one last, so we all believe that someone should find someone to love out there. We think everybody deserves that. And sometimes I wonder about Jason in particular, because he's pretty solitary. So if Jason were to date any of the Muppets, what Muppet do you think he would go out with, and where would he go?
Good question. Wow. You know what? I think because when I think of Jason, it makes me think of Jaws from Moonraker and The Spy Who Loved Me, the Bond villain, Jaws. Remember in Moonraker, he ends up with his perfect match, which is that little tiny that tiny girl with the blonde pigtails in space. So I think it has to be something along those lines. Look, I think either one of the Fraggles, the smallest of them, or I think Janice.
Janice would party with Jason.
Yeah, from Dr. Teeth's band, because I think she's so mellow.
Yeah.
I think she would really kind of mellow him out.
Yep.
You know?
Bring that kill count right down.
Yeah, right? You know? And it'd just be a lot of love and all good stuff. And she seems perennially stoned, so I think that would attract him anyway, because he does seek to murder those that use drugs, but you never see her doing drugs. So I think the scent of that might bring him close without having to kill her. So
excellent.
I think Janice might be a perfect choice.
That's a great choice. Well, Adam, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. I know you've never been asked that before.
No, I've never been asked.
And listeners, thank you so much. We hope you enjoyed this interview. I had a blast doing this, and we will be back. We'll be back next week. I'm not 100% sure where this slots in. It all depends on how quick I can get this edited. So once again, thank you to Adam Marcus for joining us tonight for that very special interview. We hope you guys dug it. Thank you to all our listeners. On behalf of Jerry, I can say that we both really enjoy bringing not only our regular episodes, but all this bonus content to you guys. It's really fun, and oh boy, wait till we get to the next couple of series we do, because we have some very cool things in store for you guys, and hopefully you guys will dig it. If you like what you heard, go ahead and follow us over on Twitter at Pod and Pendulum. That's at Pod and Pendulum over on Twitter. We tend to interact with everybody. As we get to wrapping up the Friday the 13th series here, if you have any thoughts on what we've done, or really your thoughts on Friday the 13th as a whole, like what the series means to you, what you love about it, why you still watch it to this day, what your favorite entries are, go ahead and drop us an email. If you want to write something a little bit longer than a Twitter post, go ahead and drop us an email at podandthependulumover@gmail.com, and we'll do our best to read whatever you guys write to us over the air. On behalf of Jerry, this is your host, Mike Snoonian. You guys have a fantastic week, and if you're going to go out in the woods, just remember to... I've got nothing. I've got no witty thing to end the show with. I'm just going to pat my cat on the head and go about my day. Thanks, everyone. Have a good day.
I'm going to say 2 words to you, Mr. Duke, and I want you to say the first thing that comes to your mind, okay?
Okay.
You ready?
Shoot.
Jason Voorhees.
Well, that makes me think of a little girl in a pink dress sticking a hot dog through a donut.